Hi there, and welcome to another screencast. This is Jose Rosa, Science Specialist at the Mason Pilot Elementary School in Roxbury. Today I will be covering lessons 7, 8, and 9 of the Measuring Time Science Unit by STC. All three lessons will focus on water clocks. Now, these next three lessons are quite good in terms of teaching students about scientific experiments and variables. In addition, this lesson will give students the opportunity to collect data, analyze it, and have a class discussion about their data. As a reminder, your students should still be observing the moon phases on a regular basis. They should also be recording their observations in the moon phase calendars or whichever other method you have them use to record their observations. Now, lesson 7 will have students manipulating aluminum foil in an attempt to have it sink in 15 seconds. 15, 1 5. To accomplish this, students work in teams of 2 and they are given the following materials: a 10 centimeter square aluminum foil, a 4-liter tank, 3 brass washers, and of course, water. Now, although somewhat informal, this lesson has students exploring variables. The variables can include the number of washers used, the shape of the aluminum foil, size of the hole made in aluminum foil, and so on. The discussion, which takes place and is outlined in the final activities section of this teacher's guide, will summarize students' experiments, and in addition, this is where you would introduce the term variable to your students. So now that students have been exposed to variables, they now get to choose, they now get to plan and carry out more experiments, and they get to choose the one variable that they wish to test and plan an experiment to test that variable. Now, this happens during lesson 8. During lesson 9, students carry out their experiments and collect data using data tables. But for lesson 8, students will need the following materials: a 4-liter tank, 1 large funnel, 1 yellow bead tube, and 3 brass washers, and of course, water. Now, before planning their own experiments, students will be working with these materials and measure how long it takes for the large funnel to sink in the water. You can create a frequency graph to record each team's measurement. After exploring the sinking water clock, students then get to choose one of the following variables to test: funnel size, and there are 3 different sizes that students can use; number of washers, which of course controls the weight of the system, and they have 1, 2, or 3 washers; and the size of the hole or the size of the beads that they'll be using to create their sinking water clocks. Teams will be completing 2 worksheets as they planned on experiments: worksheet 8A and worksheet 8B. 8B is filled out based on the information from 8A. You might have to guide some students, especially when they're developing the question that they will attempt to answer. Of course, make sure to review the student sheets before going on to lesson number 9. Now, once all student sheets have been approved, students will then conduct their experiments and collect data during lesson 9. It's important that all teams use the same approach when releasing their funnel setups in the water. For example, how high above the water should students hold the funnels? In addition, you will need to have a clock with a second hand available. I actually let students use their cell phones, one of the few times I let them use their cell phones, if their cell phones have a working timer. You can also project some online resources like these, the 2 sites that are on the screen right now, onto your screen and have students look at that as a clock. As students conduct their experiments, they should collect data. The teacher guide has a graph, this one right here, sheet 9A, that you can photocopy for students. Now, personally, I prefer to have my students create data tables like this one in their notebooks. As a final activity, students are asked to write a letter to someone in their family describing their experiment. In addition, The class will be discussing ways to make water clocks that sync in a very short and a very long intervals of time. Now, although somewhat, like it's very messy. Although messy, I really enjoy the water clock activities, mostly because my students enjoy it. Okay, so we're done with lesson. Sorry about that. We are done with lessons 7, 8, and 9. My next screencast will go over lessons 10 through 12, which will focus on pendulums. Tick tock, tick tock. Until then, take care and Godspeed.